Now we have a fireside chat on why growing brands need performance marketing. In performance marketing, since brands only pay once the desired action gets completed, the risk involved and the cost per acquisition are much lower and the ROI is higher. I would like to invite Satyajit Sen, Head Product and Community, ET Brand Equity, to moderate the chat session. Platform is all yours, Satyajit.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session where we will be taking a deep dive into understanding why growing brands need performance marketing. So we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has really forced people into their homes and has forced brands into the realm of internet. As sales from walk-in stores have really declined, companies have been compelled to rethink their advertising strategies. And this involves not only startups, but established brands as well. For all these brands, the preferred method has really become performance marketing and performance-oriented marketing initiatives that has really helped in doubling their ROI in that sense. Today, we have one such brand with us, which has been creating the Make in India story and taking the India story to the world. We have Burger Singh, which is one of the fastest growing QSR brands from the Indian origin and has been successfully taking on the likes of more established and international rivals. It's my honor to welcome Mr. Rahul Seth, co-founder of Burger Singh, in this fireside chat, where we'll be discussing how performance marketing has really helped the brand stay ahead of the curve and quest the competition around. So welcome, Rahul, and thank you so much for agreeing to be with us on this.
Thank you so much, Arjit. It was my pleasure completely. Looking forward to this chat.
Thank you, Rahul. Likewise. So I'm sure today in this session, me along with all our audiences will learn a tidbit about how a brand is being built, right? On the back, majorly on the back of marketing, and that too with a performance-driven marketing in this entire world. So before diving deep into understanding the nuances and understanding the strategies behind marketing the brand and marketing a new age brand, I would really want to understand from your point of view, right? Given the remarkable technological advancements that the world of brands and marketing has been seeing so far, so there is an evident shift from brand marketers towards performance marketing. So how is Burger Singh keeping up to that trend, and where does performance marketing fit into your entire area of marketing spends so far as Burger Singh is concerned?
I mean, that's quite a broad question. I'm going to try and sort of address different aspects of it, and then you can tell me if I've answered it or just escaped it in the end, and we can address it that way. See, performance marketing with all its attributes has been available or very much in full stream ever since I've had anything to do with marketing. So in a sense, it's something that I've always seen right from the beginning. At any point in time where I've directly been a part of marketing. So it's never been alien. However, obviously everyone knows that you've seen a massive shift from more traditional outdoor forms of media to digital media. And there's different aspects to it. I still haven't come to the point where, that I've decided that one is clearly better than the other. That's definitely not happening. Or is it likely to happen? Because, fundamentally, the business of, making brand impressions, especially getting people to register your brand logo multiple times, is a psychological phenomena. It's sort of, you're trying to get a consumer to be as, there's nothing dreadful, I hope. It's the business of a brand to make the logo as familiar as possible to the customer, so that once you can come across that in a consumer choice environment, there's a good recall, and all those sorts of reasons. So for digital to become substantially better than to have more of an impact than more traditional forms, you'd actually have to make the claim that that impression is more valuable than this impression, which I don't think I'll ever be able to get there. There are some things which still matter a lot. Like if you're a brand, to have a store frontage, for someone to have come across your store at some point in time is still very, very important. It builds a sort of, confidence that you're not going to get just by scrolling down, a list of restaurants on Zomato and seeing something online is not quite the same as having experienced, the store. So it's not a complete replacement. However, there's obviously advantages that everyone values. So there's firstly, it's a lot more empirical. You're able to look at clear numbers. You know what value you're getting for money. It's very difficult, for example, to say how many people have looked at a hoarding, but you know exactly how many people have listened, watched your Facebook ad, because Facebook will tell you that these are the number of impressions. Facebook will also tell you, of the number of impressions that you had, how many people actually engaged with the post, or, for a certain period of time or more, right? You're also able to segregate your audiences very carefully. So I'm not wasting money showing my ad to someone that would never be a potential customer. So all of these things obviously make it very clear in terms of, results to organizations, what they're getting for, what value they're getting for their money, and hence they're more tempted to, increase their spends on it. And that has a lot of value to it, obviously, and we've shifted in that direction ourselves quite a lot. But I wouldn't say it's a replacement. It was my point. I wouldn't say it's a replacement, and however, I see it becoming more and more dominant because it's now obviously much easier to target someone.
It's a great note to start, actually, and you are right that we have touched upon a very broader aspect, which is the like scratching the surface of what performance marketing actually stands for. So coming to your brand and your category as such, right? So Burger Singh is taking on the giants, as well as to say, right? When it comes to burgers and when it comes to the food category. So pertaining to this, right, pertaining to the competition and the cutthroat kind of environment that we have in this food sector, how do you see performance marketing really helping Burger Singh in that case? Because if I'm hungry, I want to have a burger. How do you make sure that I instantly connect with Burger Singh rather than not your competition?
Right. So, I'm not going to throw anything out here that, someone who's already in performance marketing doesn't already understand, or anyone who runs a business hasn't been pitched 100 times, because there's the obvious benefits of what we've already said, which is like targeted audiences. It's easier for me to compete for the attention span of a person sitting at home. If my competitor is a Burger King or a McDonald's or any of these larger chains, which with thousands of times the budget that we have to spend on marketing, when I'm competing for a very narrow sort of audience, or at least it leaves me the space to be able to do it. Now put yourself back 20 years and say, whether in a world where there's no digital marketing, the hoarding that Burger King would be able to put up on the highway would be a lot bigger than what the sign that I would be standing up with saying ke mere restaurant mein aake dhabe mein khana kha lo. It would have been it's a entirely different whatever. So one, it's opened up the field of competitive advertising quite a lot and made it accessible. That's definitely true. Starting off as a newer sort of restaurant in this space, you can't help but you have to operate with very limited budgets. When you're starting off the ground, when you've got one restaurant, just a little money that you raise from friends and family and so on, you have to optimize it as much, and you have to make sure it pays its way every advertising rupee that you spend. So there obviously you want to go as narrow as possible, reach your specific target audience and do the best conversions then you can. It actually allows us to compete at that place. That I'd say that's the biggest advantage, which wouldn't necessarily have happened 20 years ago without some of these avenues available for marketing.
That drives me to the next question, actually. So as you rightly said, when you are competing with a deep pocket, big budget competition, right? Performance marketing really comes in handy. So from the ROI perspective, right? How smart it is. So let me reframe. So from the ROI perspective, how important it is for growing brands, right? And we're talking about rising brands, growing brands that are right now just scratching the surface, and maybe there is a huge story or huge growth story behind them, waiting to happen. How should they smartly use performance marketing in this case? So if you can actually help some of our audiences understand in a setting of phase, how does performance marketing help?
See, there's some advantages of performance marketing that you have just in order to, which I think have been put in place to make the competitive landscape a little bit more fair, right? So I'll give you an example of, you asked, you talked about us being a small company and there being bigger pocket spenders available. I'll give you an example of Burger Sing as a brand competing against Burger Sing as a brand, but with much deeper pockets. So I'll tell you what I mean. Like, so for example, if you go onto Google and I want to search Indianized burger, which is sort of our specialties, that we do burgers in Indian flavors. And I put money on, so if a user is doing that and I'm advertising on those tags, I'll typically also find that Zomato or Swiggy, who are listing my restaurant, will also be spending money on Indianized burgers, promoting my own products. So now, in a sense, I'm competing against myself because I'm spending advertising money competing against someone else who's also spending advertising money selling my product essentially. So and someone with much deeper pockets. So it's a weird universe where you're in sort of trying to outbid yourself in a but there's advantages built into situations like this, and they are that the brand owner wins the bid at a lower price point. Like, so if you understand how all of these biddings on advertising work, then I'll get the bid towards keywords that represent my business more easily than Zomato will get them, or Zomato will have to pay a much higher price for them. So that equals out the playing field to a degree. It allows me as a small business, to answer your question, to sort of take advantage of the fact that I'm advertising myself. And once you've looked after the relevant SEO and all of that stuff, you've done that on the website, and that you have a high quality rating, then you can bid and win these bids at a lower price point. So the first strategy I would say as a startup is to sort of identify your target audience very clearly. It's a way of addressing the low hanging fruit everywhere, rather than taking a gamble and saying कि मैं इस hoarding पे डाल देता हूँ. It depends on what your product is too, obviously, but rather than saying that I'll put this on a hoarding or take out a newspaper ad which is gone in one day, I would rather spend, like, this is 100 rupees that I have. I want to spend this 100 rupees to reach whatever 50 customers who are at least potential customers who have all the right things about them. So these audiences, also social media audiences, allow you to do things like lookalike audiences. So you can take your own consumer database and replicate them to the closest possible degree to see other people, to find other people that are very much like your existing customers, and hence have a much higher chance of sort of conversion. So the narrower you keep it, it allows you to advertise to very narrowly to your target audience in a much better way than you would if those means were not available. So that's something for everyone to leverage. Like, you start identify your target audience as clearly as possible and test it out on that audience. If you're in the really early stages, you might find out a thing or two about who your target audience really is, because you might find out that the people you thought were your target audiences are not the people responding to your advertisements when you're showing it to them on social media. So that in itself is a learning, that do I need to change the communication as in the creatives which I'm using, or is there something wrong with the product? And hence it's like a very useful feedback mechanism as well, especially for young startups who don't have still trying to find an identity and trying to polish their product or their services or their offering or whatever it is. So there's a great utility there too, I feel.
Correct. So it actually, I want to build on to that point of, that catch-22 situation where you are ideally, competing with yourself, right? Because this probably happens with a lot of D2C startups where, there is a, consumer connect, and they are advertising themselves, but then there are, third-party platforms, who also sell their products, and they are also advertising on those similar keywords, and, probably they are promoting the same product, but on a different keyword and different this one. So in this case, how do you deal with it? And especially how is Burger Sing strategizing this, and navigating through this, stage?
No, so I think I already answered that in my last whatever, and that was that if you are running an ad campaign, if I'm Burger Sing and I'm running an ad campaign on the keywords Burger Sing, and you are, let's say, Zomato, and you're running a campaign also on the keywords Burger Sing, because I own the website and I own the brand, the bidding price for me is automatically lower than it is for someone else, right? So there's two ways to look at it. One way to look at it is that Zomato already advertise kar raha hai, why should I bother doing, spending any of my own money on it? And there's a value there, because obviously all sales that happen through, now this is going to be consistent whether you're selling food on Zomato or you're selling bike helmets on Amazon, the principle remains the same, is that you're trying to get your own direct to consumer sales maximize versus transacting on a platform. So as a marketer, you have to make sure, first you have to understand where your cost of customer acquisition is the highest, where your retention is the highest, and hence where it makes most sense for you to have the transaction. So that, like for me, for every ad campaign that I run, where I want the consumer to transact is a very important part of that whole ad campaign. So sometimes it might be more beneficial for me land that order on Zomato. Let's say it's a Independence Day campaign and there's a very high volume of orders, and I just don't have the riders to fulfill all the orders. So if I run an ad campaign, it would be absolutely stupid for me to try and generate direct to consumer sales when I'm not going to be able to deliver them. It makes a lot more sense for me to send that to a Zomato or a Swiggy, right? In some, and so I have to consider, what the cost of a customer acquisition is, what the actual transaction cost on the platform is, and where it makes most sense for me to drive the traffic. And all of those things have a role to play in, sort of deciding what to do. But basically, in terms of competing with all of these platforms, that's the first thing that you do. You first decide where you want someone to transact. Now, if I want someone to transact on Zomato at a period of time, then obviously, I'm not going to spend money advertising, bidding on that keyword against Zomato, because then I'm just driving the price of that bid up. And in the end, we're achieving the same thing. So, that's really a very nuanced sort of conversation and has a different answer to every individual situation, I suppose. But broadly speaking, I would say decide where you want the consumer to transact first, on your platform or on the aggregator platform, whatever they are.
Right. So it depends on case to case basis, right? Case to case scenario. That's a very interesting example. So so now we're talking about Zomato, we're talking about apps, we're talking about website orders, D2C. So in all this scenario, where does the mobile phone or the mobile platform feature in your overall marketing strategy? Albeit be it performance or be it the bigger marketing strategy. How is Burger King looking at the mobile platform and tapping into the mobile users?
Primal position in terms of actual number of transactions, because you get a lot more people transacting on, especially for food purchases. Between 80 and 90% consumer transactions ordering food, especially in the delivery space, happen on the phone. So you completely have to cater to it. Everything is, one aspect of it is that the actual transactions are happening on the phone, right? And so you want to make sure that everything that you do, every image, every layout of every page, etc., is optimized most to, for the mobile user. That's the consumer experience aspect of it. There's also the other aspect to consider, which is while advertising, obviously, Facebook doesn't tell you how much money, thankfully, that's one of the few things it still doesn't tell you, is that how much money someone has, right? But they do still, pretty much everything else. So it's not far, that day is not far either. But it does tell you, for instance, the range or how expensive someone's phone is. So if you're choosing an audience, you can say, I want to pick people over a certain, who have a 30,000 phone or more, for example, right? Now, I might not do that for Burger King, because Burger King is a fairly, it's a product that is almost accessible to everyone because of how value driven it is. It's a very cheap, affordable product and so almost anyone is a Burger King customer. But if I'm making like a slightly higher end sale to some degree, if I was a company doing that, then it would make a lot more sense for me.
Right. So, staying on to that, performance reel, understanding your mobile strategy and, taking it forward. How does, so again, this question is for, basically, targeted towards helping our startup customers and startup, audiences more. Like, as you just said, mobile has become utmost important for any brand today, and be it on food, or be it on any other category. How to win on the mobile phone is there a mantra around it, or from the Burger King experience, right? What are the points that one need to remember, or one needs to refer to when devising a mobile marketing strategy, and especially keeping performance at the core?
See, there would be a lot more to add over here if we were doing a lot of transactions on our own platform online in the online space, which we have not actually been doing for a while. So I can only speak from past experience, but the principles don't change. I think the things that you have to look at, especially if you have your own consumer experience where you're driving. So the first part of strategy, like I said, one is the targeting aspect, that whether you use it in targeting or not, there's some element. But as for the actual consumer experience, you want all the things that are associated with fast transactions that are typical of any platform now. So this is now like a whole field of optimization, is where people are just looking at the user experience and looking at redundancies in flows, looking at wasted movement, extra data, what is the page load time, and how much you can optimize that in order to have a better experience. In a lot of cases, you might have that the ad is delivering perfectly well to it's clicking perfectly through to the website, but the website takes too long to load, and so that's something that needs to be optimized. Everything needs to be done, visited and revisited from a consumer experience perspective. And there's some principles, obviously, which are now, and there'll be like a million other people who are more qualified to speak about this than I am, but that they will just say that, it's about optimizing the user experience and making the fastest, simplest path to the behavior that you're trying to drive as a company. So if I'm trying to sell certain products of, let's say, a higher average order value than someone left to their own means, then I would have very effectively created a menu, engineered a menu, had combos placed there at affordable prices, and have the checkout so easy that the whole process doesn't take any time or thought or effort from the end user perspective. So obviously there's all of those things to consider, which you sit and work and rework again and again. We look at all data, funnel data, how many people landed on your page, how long did they stay there for, how many people added products from the menu onto the cart, how many people went from the cart, and finally finished the transaction, how many people dropped off. And then obviously you have a corresponding list of, things that are happening over there on the cart. For example, if someone is dropping off at the cart, क्या-क्या चीजें हैं, क्या-क्या reasons हैं वहाँ पे जिसके वजह से कोई drop off हुआ, हो सकता है. So obviously this is fairly, standard practice to sort of look and, optimize this over and over and over again, to maximize your sales. Also, the big advantage of the digital space generally is that with all of these things, there's very accurate data. And there's a lot more that you can predict about a human being than we don't realize, which is just done based on an analysis of looking at 100 case studies of 100 people's journey through the website. Teaches you a lot about human behavior that may not be intuitive. So obviously, there's all of those things to sort of consider. Every time you make a change, you can look at what the outcome has been and then come back and fix things if you need to or sort. So, I mean, these are all fairly standard things in terms of mobile optimization. I'm not necessarily the best person to speak to, and yet we do look at every single aspect of, of what it means to have that transaction.
Correct. So, Rahul, I know you mentioned it in the initial part of the conversation where you hinted that it's not either or, like between performance and other forms of marketing. But I'm tempted to ask you, in the entire Burger Singh journey so far, right? If you have to choose, between performance and traditional marketing, what has really been your fruit bearer in that sense? What has really helped the brand grow to what it is currently?
It's genuinely very difficult to give you one answer because different things have worked at different times. So there have been, when we started off, I'll give you a great example of how you can use performance driven channels, at least, or performance marketing to your advantage. When we were really a young company, just steading off the ground, when we had like one or two, 3 outlets maybe, and not a lot of marketing spend, and we were using these traditional mediums, which we've already talked about. One of the things, apart from just the media that we used, which was digital to a huge degree, it was how we leveraged it. So we started sending out SMSs. Now, I don't know whether you would consider that old school marketing or digital or what, but we would send out SMSs once or twice a week. We just had, they were very tweet-like SMSs. So like 140 characters, a very funny, hopefully funny joke, a joke, but nothing about Burger Singh at all. You would only know that it was Burger Singh because it was either coming from the Burger Singh handle, or in the end you had the Burger Singh website. But the content itself was just humor. Now, it was, hopefully we were trying to feed, we were trying to feed content that people would find interesting, or witty, or things that they would remember. But it was a way for us to carve out a space and an identity in a market which is very crowded. So yes, maybe you are looking at like all the regular ads, Tata Salt, or or this or that, like 1,000 times a day, but they don't stand out. So yes, it's true, impressions have a value. I'm not, I would never say that it doesn't have a value, but maybe doing something on the, focusing on the content aspect of delivering that also can deliver extremely high whatever at a small cost. Because if you notice something that's funny, you might, it might stick with you for the rest of the day, whereas noticing something plain may not like create a specific whatever. So yes, number of impressions is one way to get there, but the quality of the impression itself matters quite a lot. So the more advanced or sophisticated or heartwarming or whatever it is your content needs to be in order to really reach out and speak to a person, if you manage to achieve that, then that's such a huge value. So I mean, that's one way of sort of addressing performance marketing. That's really worked very well for us in the beginning. And you could, I don't know if you would call that performance marketing or not, because I was using SMSs, but it was essentially a digital approach because I was looking at numbers, putting aside target audiences, and then targeting them and sending. So I don't know what you would call that. And similarly, over the years, both things have worked really well. We've done ad campaigns in newspapers that have like really become viral and got a lot of attention. We've just done online campaigns that have, really worked well and given us a lot of attention. So I would really genuinely be hesitant to pick one. I know there's a theme here, but I'm not ready to write off. I know no one has been out in a year or so now. Everyone's been staying indoors, but I'm not willing to write out outdoor media just yet. I think there's still some scope for it.
Right. And, I think, people have just started going out, and, the roads are again filled with traffic. So, people are out actually. It's not that, everybody's inside. And you are right, performance alone cannot solve, and today the word performance has become so broader, like, so be it, even if your SMS is getting you results, it is also considered a performance. Or even if your print ad is giving, driving results, so this is also considered performance. So basically the entire realm of marketing has become performance oriented, as so as to say. Yeah, great. So as we move towards the end of this discussion today, so Rahul, I'm really intrigued to understand from you, right? Beyond, moving beyond performance marketing and keeping performance marketing aside, so what's next for the brand Burger Singh, right? Brand Burger Singh is a great make in India story, right? And so what's next for the brand? What are the next milestones that we're looking at? And I recently read in the newspapers that you have been taking on the giants in this space already, who are internationally more acclaimed. So yeah, so what's next?
I mean, I wouldn't say we've internationally made any dent at all, but here, touchwood, it's been, the product has been very successful. There are a majority of our areas, Delhi NCR focused. There are definitely areas within Delhi NCR where we do better even than the two giants in our space, which everyone knows of and has heard of. Outside those two guys, in terms of delivery volumes, we already do, like, I think we're number 3 on pretty much both the platforms right now, or at least fluctuate to being number 3 after, the big two. So we've sort of, at least we're now confident that the areas that we're in, which is predominantly currently North India, but we'll expand to other parts of the country as well. We're at least a little confident that the people have now accepted the product. It works well. The price point, we've understood a little bit about menu engineering, and what are the price points that people are looking for? What are the add-ons they're looking for? What is the value that sort of drives consumer behavior? So we've made a lot of mistakes and had a few learnings along the way, but now we feel all of that is very set. So from a product perspective, we're fairly set. Supply chain is fairly set. So, which is sort of the backbone of any quick service restaurant industry, really. a lot of our franchisees that are coming on board now. We've started franchising a lot more. So for the first 20 or so 25 outlets, we owned all of them. But now we've started franchising. We are coming up to our 50th sort of outlet. There's going to be a bigger, hopefully a decent, sort of celebration then. But the idea now is to take a model which has worked, which we've taken and, put in 10 different situations and has worked in 9 out of 10 situations. We feel we're at the spot where we have a workable business model. Now the idea is just to replicate as quickly as possible. So now is, we have a profitable model. We are the third largest selling in terms of volumes now pretty much across the country. We are looking to enter a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities through franchising predominantly. The franchising model is very easy and profitable for people who want to log in and sort of set up into that space. We help them with all of it, with the marketing aspects of it, with supply chain management and so on. So the objective now is just to, take regions, explore the maximum capacity that region can afford. So North India, if you are looking at, I'm just throwing a number off the top of my head, but if it's like 200 outlets that you're looking at, then how close are we getting to the 200 outlets? So now it's just focused on expansion and managing. And so there's two real critical parts of it now. One is expansion and onboarding new franchisees and a new company-owned outlets. And the second is a success team, which gets bigger, which is a franchise success team, which is just solely focused on absolutely ensuring that each one of these new outlets also becomes profitable and stays open, hence sort of hopefully growing the brand a little bit. And so that's the plan. Over the next few years, you're just going to see a lot more outlets.
Great, Rahul. So on that note, I'm really hoping that the next time that we meet, there are more learnings from us from Burger Singh, and actually the Burger Singh story that we are already keeping a close watch is just becomes bigger. So thank you so much, Rahul, for joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we come to an end of today's session. I hope that, we could understand how, aligning to performance-driven marketing has really helped a brand like Burger Singh grow and take it to the story to where it is currently. And, and as they say that the sky is the limit, I'm sure, as marketing, as marketing grows, as media grows, performance-driven marketing will also grow. We are keeping a close watch on brands like Burger Singh. And Rahul, thank you so much for taking out time and giving us insights related from the story of Burger Singh. This will really help our audiences. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for talking to me.
Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your perspective about the topic. I'm sure our audience will filter out learnings from the detailed discussion. Now let's move to the next session. Stay tuned.